The thunder cracked like a rifle shot over Haven Point, shattering the fragile quiet of my rented cabin as rain lashed the windows in furious sheets. I jolted upright on the sagging couch, heart slamming against my ribs, the blackout plunging the room into a void so absolute it swallowed my breath. In that endless black, the memory clawed back unbidden. Tyler's voice, cold as the betrayal it carried, whispering goodbye in the sterile glow of a Seattle airport lounge, his hand slipping from mine like it had never been there at all. I fumbled for my phone on the coffee table, its screen a mocking sliver of light in the abyss, battery at 12% and no signal bars to speak of. Haven Point, this forgotten speck on Maine's jagged coast, had always felt like a refuge, a place to lick wounds in solitude amid the salt-kissed pines and fog-shrouded bays. But tonight, with the storm howling like a beast unchained, it was just a cage. I had fled here 3 months ago, trading the relentless pulse of the city for this creaky A-frame on the edge of Ridge Valley Road, chasing the myth that isolation could stitch a broken heart. The cabin smelled of damp cedar and stale coffee, remnants of a life I was trying to rebuild from scraps. Freelance graphic design gigs emailed into the ether, half-read novels on quantum regret, and nights where sleep came only after exhausting arguments with ghosts. The power had flickered warnings all evening, brief dips that made the single bulb overhead stutter like a dying pulse, before surrendering entirely around 9. I lit the emergency candles I'd bought on a whim at the local market in town, their flames dancing erratic shadows across the walls adorned with faded maps of lighthouses and nautical charts I'd pinned up to feign adventure. But the warmth was illusory. The chill seeped through the cracks, wrapping around me like Tyler's absence. He had been the anchor, or so I'd thought. 5 years of shared sunrises in our Capitol Hill apartment, his laugh echoing off brick walls during pride parades, his touch a promise against the world's sharp edges. Until the promotion to New York pulled him away, and with it, the confession over a pixelated video call. It's not you, Elias. It's the distance. And someone else. The someone else was a colleague, broad-shouldered and ambitious, the kind of man who fit Tyler's new skyline dreams better than I ever could. I paced the living room, floorboards groaning under my socks, the wind rattling the panes like impatient fingers. Outside, the bay churned, waves crashing against the rocky shore audible even over the gale. Haven Point wasn't kind to newcomers. The locals in the diner on Main Street eyed me with that polite Maine reserve, murmuring about city boys burning out over lobster rolls and black coffee. I'd nod, force a smile, and retreat to my sketches. Abstract swirls of color that bled my pain onto digital canvas. But tonight the storm amplified everything. The creak of the roof, the drip from a leak in the kitchen, the hollow echo of my own breathing. Loneliness wasn't new, but this felt primal. A devouring thing that whispered I was unlovable. Adrift in a world that had moved on without me. A knock at the door, sharp, insistent, yanked me from the spiral. I froze, candle in hand, wax dripping hot onto my thumb. Who the hell would be out in this? The nearest neighbor was a mile down the dirt road, and the power lines snaked through wilderness that turned treacherous in weather like this. Another knock, softer now, almost apologetic. My pulse thrummed as I approached, peering through the peephole into swirling darkness. A silhouette loomed, broad and rain-slicked, lantern light catching the edge of a wool coat. Who's there? My voice cracked, thinner than I'd intended. Wyatt Harlan. Your landlord. The words rumbled low, steady as the sea beyond, carrying a timbre that cut through the storm's roar. Heard the outage hit hard up here. Came to check the place, and you. I hesitated, fingers on the latch, a lifetime of caution screaming against opening to a stranger. But the isolation clawed deeper than fear, and something in his tone, quiet authority laced with concern, unlatched the bolt. The door swung inward on protesting hinges, admitting a gust that snuffed my candle and sent drafts swirling. There he stood, Wyatt Harlan, mid-30s, with the weathered build of someone who wrestled lobster traps for a living, his dark hair plastered to a forehead tanned by relentless coastal sun, olive skin glistening under rivulets of rain. His eyes, a deep hazel flecked with gold, met mine without flinching, holding a depth that spoke of storms weathered long before this one. Jesus, it's biblical out there, he said, stepping inside with a duffel slung over one shoulder, water pooling at his boots. He shook off like a dog, revealing a flannel shirt clinging to a frame corded with muscle, The kind earned from hauling lines and mending nets, not gym reps. Up close, he smelled of brine and pine soap, a scent that grounded me amid the chaos. Generator in the truck's acting up, but I brought extras, flashlights, batteries, a thermos of soup from the house. Figured a city transplant like you might not be stocked for Armageddon. I blinked, caught off guard by the casual assessment, the way he filled the space without overwhelming it. Elias Thorne. And yeah, guilty. I thought Maine winters were the real killer, not autumn squalls. I gestured vaguely at the gloom, stepping back to let him pass. He moved with an economy of motion, setting the duffel on the table and unzipping it to reveal glow sticks, a wind-up radio crackling with static forecasts, and a battered tin mug steaming faintly. "Autumn's the deceiver," Wyatt replied. Pouring soup into 2 bowls, he produced from the bag chunky potato with herbs that hit like comfort food from a forgotten era. Hits soft, then bares teeth. "Eat. It'll chase the chill." He handed me one, our fingers brushing in the low light of his lantern, a spark that had nothing to do with electricity. I took it, the warmth seeping through ceramic to skin, and for the first time that night, the knot in my chest loosened a fraction. We ate in companionable silence at first, the storm's symphony outside underscoring the intimacy of the moment. Wyatt leaned against the counter, scanning the room with a proprietor's eye. The peeling wallpaper, the stack of unpacked boxes in the corner labeled "Memories Burn." His presence was magnetic, not in a flashy way, but like the pull of the tide. Inevitable, enveloping. "Place has history," he said eventually, voice threading through the patter on the roof. "Built by my granddad in '52 after the war." He said solitude's a fine teacher, but it bites if you let it. I nodded, spoon pausing midway. Running from a bite myself. Seattle chewed me up and spat me out. The words slipped free, unbidden, fueled by the soup's warmth or the way his gaze held no judgment. Tyler's face flickered in my mind, his easy smile turning to evasion, the packed suitcase by the door. Boyfriend decided the East Coast called louder. Left me with a lease I couldn't afford and a heart that feels like roadkill. Wyatt's expression shifted. A flicker of something raw crossing his features. Empathy or recognition. He set his bowl down, crossing arms that strained the flannel seams. "Betrayal's a storm all its own. Cleans house but leaves wreckage." He paused, hazel eyes tracing the candle flames on the mantel. "Lost my way once too. Wife walked out 5 years back. Said I was too tethered to this rock." A ghost of a smile bitter-edged. She wasn't wrong. Haven Point's got hooks in deep. Wife. The word landed like a rogue wave, but not with jealousy. More a curiosity, piecing together the man before me. Wyatt Harlan, the enigmatic landlord who'd handled my application with clipped emails and a single walkthrough, revealing little beyond a firm handshake and knowledge of tide charts. Rumors in town painted him as a recluse. Former fisherman turned property owner after an accident at sea claimed his boat and nearly his leg. But here in the flickering light, he was achingly human. Scars hidden but hinted at in the slight limp when he shifted weight. The conversation meandered then, buoyed by the storm's ferocity, a shared laugh over my disastrous attempt at clamming on the flats, his tales of boyhood summers chasing fireflies along the marsh. Hours blurred. The radio droned warnings of fallen trees blocking Ridge Valley Road, stranding us in this suspended limbo. As midnight crept in, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving a bone-deep fatigue. I yawned, and Wyatt noticed, dousing the lantern to preserve fuel. "Guest room's yours if the couch rebels," I offered, though the cabin had only one bed upstairs, a loft affair I'd claimed. He waved it off, spreading a blanket on the floor by the hearth, where embers from a hastily stoked fire glowed faint. "Slept in worse. Good night, Elias." His voice softened, the name rolling off his tongue like it belonged there. I climbed the ladder to the loft, burrowing under quilts that smelled of lavender from the previous tenant, but sleep evaded. Below, his breathing evened out, a rhythmic anchor in the dark. The storm raged on, but for the first time the aloneness fractured, just a hairline crack admitting possibility. Dawn crept in grudgingly. The storm's fury muted to a persistent drizzle that tapped the roof like hesitant fingers. I woke to the scent of coffee brewing, impossible, until I remembered Wyatt's thermos, now evidently replenished by some miracle of his duffel. Descending the ladder, I found him at the kitchen table, fiddling with a portable stove, his coat shed to reveal a faded navy tee clinging to broad shoulders. Sunlight slanted through grimy windows, gilding the room in hazy gold, and for a moment, the cabin felt less like exile, more like haven. "Morning," he greeted, pouring a mug without asking. Black strong, the way I'd confessed over soup the night before. Power's still out, but the road's passable. Truck's got four-wheel bite. His eyes crinkled at the corners, a warmth that belied the limp as he rose to hand me the coffee. Close like this, I noticed the faint scar snaking from his collarbone, a silvery reminder of that sea accident the town whispered about. "Thanks. For everything." I sipped, the bitterness grounding me, chasing away the night's vulnerabilities. "You didn't have to play knight in shining raincoat." He shrugged, settling back with his own mug, steam curling between us like unspoken bridges. "Landlord's code. Besides, city's got its shine, but up here's where folks need reminding they're not islands." His gaze lingered, probing gently. "You settling in okay? Haven Point can be unforgiving to fresh starts." I leaned against the counter, the wood cool under my palms, and let the words tumble. It was easier in daylight, with the storm's drama faded to backdrop. Trying. Work steady, logos for craft breweries, book covers that no one reads. But the quiet. It amplifies the noise in your head. Tyler's laugh echoed in memory, sharp as shattered glass, followed by the silence of empty texts. He was my first real shot at forever. Thought we were building something solid. Turns out, I was just the foundation he outgrew. Wyatt listened without interruption, his silence a canvas for my unraveling. When I trailed off, he nodded slowly, fingers tracing the mug's rim. "Forever's a slippery bastard." I chased it once, marriage, the whole picket fence illusion after the divorce dust settled. Lasted 6 months before I realized I was performing for ghosts. He paused, hazel eyes distant, fixed on the bay's restless gray. "Truth is, Elias, some of us are wired for the deep water. Solitude's not punishment. It's the only place the current runs true." The confession hung, heavy with implication, and I wondered at the man across from me, Wyatt Harlan, who fixed roofs and ferried supplies but carried a loneliness as vast as the Atlantic. We spent the morning like that, trading fragments. My Seattle escapades at underground art shows, his summers crewing schooners out of Portland, the salt spray etching lines into skin too young for them. By noon the power hummed back to life with a reluctant buzz, lights flickering on like hesitant applause. Wyatt packed his duffel, but not before inviting me to the harbor for chowder at the Anchor's End, the town's weathered pub where fishermen swap tales over pints. "Company'd be good," he said, hat tugged low against the lingering mist. "Unless you're allergic to lobster." I laughed. A real one, rusty from disuse, and agreed. As his truck rumbled away, kicking up gravel, I stood in the doorway, the cabin suddenly too still. That afternoon, I sketched for the first time without the weight of ache. Bold lines of crashing waves, a figure silhouetted against them, strong and unyielding. Haven Point unfolded in the days that followed like a well-worn map, its folds revealing hidden paths. The town clung to the peninsula's crook, a cluster of clapboard houses and bait shacks dwarfed by towering firs, where the air tasted of iodine and possibility. I fell into a rhythm. Mornings at the desk by the window, afternoons wandering the tidal pools, sketching the iridescent shells that mirrored my fragile mending. Wyatt became a fixture, not intrusive but present. A truck parked by the cabin with tools spilling from the bed, a basket of wild blueberries left on the porch with a note scrawled in block letters. "For the pie you swore you'd attempt. Don't burn the place down." Our evenings at the Anchor's End wove the thread tighter. The pub was a time capsule, dark wood beams scarred by decades of elbows, a jukebox crooning Springsteen anthems between bursts of locals' banter. Wyatt held court without trying, his stories drawing laughs from grizzled captains nursing whiskeys. I'd sit beside him, nursing a local IPA, content in the periphery until his knee brushed mine under the table, a casual accident that lingered electric. One night, after a round of darts where I miraculously bested him, he leaned in, breath warm against my ear. "You're fitting in, city boy. Like you were always meant for this shore." His hand clasped my shoulder, thumb grazing the nape of my neck, sending a shiver unrelated to the draft. I met his eyes, the hazel depths pulling me under, and for the first time since Tyler, desire flickered, not as rebound but as recognition. Back at the cabin under a canopy of stars unmarred by city haze, we lingered on the porch steps, a shared blanket against the autumn bite. The conversation turned intimate, voices low as the lapping waves. "What scares you most?" I asked, emboldened by the dark. "Losing the parts of me that matter," Wyatt replied, voice roughened by honesty. "The sea takes what it wants, but so does fear." After the wreck, lost 2 crewmates, my leg pinned under the mast, I swore off close. Easier to drift alone. His fingers found mine, intertwining tentatively, calluses rough against my smoother skin. Until now. The kiss came unhurried, born of that shared confession. A press of lips tasting of salt and ale, his hand cupping my jaw with a gentleness that belied his strength. It deepened slowly, the world narrowing to the heat of him, the way his stubble rasped against mine, awakening nerves long dormant. When we parted breathless, his forehead rested against mine. "This okay?" "More than," I whispered, heart a wild drum. That night he stayed. Not on the floor, but beside me in the loft, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces forged in fire. Touch was exploration. The map of his scars under my fingertips, the soft hitch of his breath as I traced the hollow of his throat. We moved with the storm's echo, fierce, then tender, finding release in whispers and sighs that chased shadows from the corners. But dawn brought the first fracture. Wyatt rose early, dressing in the half-light, his silhouette etched against the window. Meeting the harbormaster, paperwork for the season's end. A kiss to my temple lingering. "We'll talk later. About us." The word bloomed, fragile as sea glass. I spent the day in a haze of sketches, his profile rendered in charcoal, eyes alight with unspoken promises. Yet unease stirred, fed by a voicemail from Seattle. Tyler's number deleted but not forgotten. A wrong number ping that twisted the knife. Was this rebound or rebirth? Wyatt returned at dusk, face drawn, bearing takeout from the pub. Over clams and conversation he opened further. The divorce's scars, how he'd rebuilt with these rentals, pouring salvaged wood into lives like mine. "You make me want to anchor again," he admitted, hand over mine. But his phone buzzed. An unknown caller he silenced quickly, jaw tightening. "Who was that?" I asked lightly, but the seed of doubt took root. "Nothing. Old business." His smile didn't reach his eyes, and as night fell, our lovemaking carried an undercurrent of urgency, as if staving off the tide. The weeks blurred into a rhythm as steady as the bay's ebb and flow, Wyatt and I carving out a fragile world amid Haven Point's unyielding edges. Mornings began with coffee on the porch, his arms slung casual around my shoulders, watching gulls wheel against slate skies. Afternoons, he'd haul me onto his skiff for short runs to the outer islands, where seals basked on basalt and the wind stripped pretensions bare. "Breathe it in," he'd say, voice lost to the spray, and I would, inhaling the brine that scoured clean the remnants of Seattle's smog-choked regrets. Our connection deepened in stolen intimacies. Lazy Sundays tangled in sheets, his laughter rumbling as I burned pancakes, the way he'd hum old folk tunes while mending a leak in the cabin's roof, me passing tools from below. Wyatt was a revelation. Fierce in passion, his body a landscape of strength and surrender, hands that gripped like lifelines during climaxes that left us gasping, spent and whole. Yet tenderness threaded it all. The night he traced Tyler's ghost from my confessions, murmuring, "He's fool's gold. You're the vein that runs true," before drawing me close, our heartbeats sinking in the dark. Haven Point noticed, of course, the sidelong glances at the anchor's end, murmurs over morning papers at the general store. Maine's reserve held, but curiosity simmered. Wyatt, the stoic widower turned recluse, entangled with the soft-spoken artist from the West Coast. I felt exposed, yet seen, finally achingly so. My sketches evolved, infused with his essence. Portraits of calloused hands cradling a mug, abstracts of tangled limbs in dawn light, colors bleeding warm against the cool blues of isolation. But shadows gathered, subtle as fog rolling in. Wyatt's phone calls increased. Late nights when he'd step onto the porch, voice pitched low, words clipped like encrypted code. Yeah, it's handled. Just keep it quiet. I'd lie awake, the loft's chill pressing in, doubt a serpent coiling tight. Once, rifling for a charger in his jacket pocket, I found a crumpled receipt. Portland Motel, dated last month, scribbled with a name. C. Riley. Heart stuttering, I shoved it back, berating my paranoia. Trust Elias. He's given you everything. The fracture widened on a crisp November eve, leaves carpeting Ridge Valley Road in fiery decay. We'd planned a hike to the lighthouse at Point Harrow, a skeletal tower perched on cliffs where waves hurled defiance at the sky. Wyatt arrived late, truck mud-spattered, eyes shadowed. Rough day, tenant squabbles, he explained, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of evasion. We trekked in companionable quiet at first, the path winding through birch groves alive with rustle, salt wind whipping our scarves. At the overlook, with the Atlantic sprawling endless below, I broached it. You've been distant. Those calls, who's C? Riley. The name slipped out raw as exposed nerve. Wyatt stilled back to me, hands braced on a weathered rail. The pause stretched, wind keening between us. Elias. He turned, face etched with conflict, hazel eyes storm-tossed. It's not what you think. Chris, old crewmate from the wreck. He's struggling. Debts piling up, bottle calling louder. I wire him cash sometimes, cover motels when he's crashing. Relief flooded, mingled with shame. Why hide it? I'm not Tyler. I won't bolt at your baggage. His laugh was hollow, edged with pain. Haven't I told you? I'm a fixer. Granddad's legacy, patch the nets, shore the hulls. But Chris. He's the one loose end I can't tie. Lost his leg too in that storm. Blames me, drinks to drown it. Covering for him keeps the guilt at bay. He stepped closer, hand cupping my cheek, thumb brushing a tear I hadn't felt fall. You deserve clean starts, not my wreckage. I leaned into his touch, the lighthouse's beam sweeping like a confessor's gaze. We're both wreckage. That's why we fit. The kiss that followed was desperate, bodies pressing against the rail, his growl low as hands roamed urgent under layers. We made love there on the cliff's edge, clothing shed in frantic pulls, skin bared to the chill, his weight pinning me to damp earth as thrusts matched the wave's crash. Release came shattering, cries lost to the wind, binding us tighter in vulnerability's forge. Yet the seed once cracked sprouted thorns. Days later, a package arrived at the cabin, unmarked, heavy. Inside. Faded photos from the wreck, Wyatt bloodied on deck, Chris's arm around him in younger days, grins wide and unscarred. Tucked in, a letter, handwriting jagged. Wyatt, can't keep taking your handouts. Come clean to your boy before it eats you. We're poison, brother. CR. My stomach knotted, pieces misaligning. Poison? The calls, the motels, more than debt? Confrontation brewed that night over dinner, stew simmering as tension thickened the air. Chris wrote, I said, sliding the letter across the table. Wyatt's face drained, fork clattering. Damn it. He raked hands through dark hair, pacing. It's not Elias, listen. After the accident we leaned on each other. Hard. Nights in rehab, morphine dreams blurring lines. It was comfort, not. He stopped, voice breaking. One time, drunk and desperate. Never again. He's spiraling, projecting old shit onto me now. Betrayal's echo, Tyler's evasion mirrored in Wyatt's half-truths, surged hot. Comfort? Or the reason you swore off close? Am I just the next harbor for your storms? Words lashed, born of fear, not fact. Wyatt recoiled as if struck, eyes flashing hurt. You think that's this? God, Elias, you're the first real sense. Ever. He reached, but I flinched back. I should have told you. But I was scared you'd see the mess and sail. The argument escalated, voices rising over the rain's resurgence. Accusations flying like spume. I came here to heal, not collect strays. I shouted, the lie tasting bitter. He stormed out, door slamming, truck roaring into the night. Alone, the cabin loomed accusatory, photos scattered like indictments. I curled on the couch, sobs racking, the storm outside mocking my inner gale. Had I misread sanctuary for trap? As thunder rolled, regret whispered. Perhaps the real wreckage was mine, pushing away the one who stayed through the blackout. The silence after Wyatt's departure was a vacuum, sucking light from the cabin until even the fire's glow seemed accusatory. I replayed the fight in loops, my sharp words his fractured gaze, each iteration carving deeper. Haven Point, once a bomb, now pressed claustrophobic, the bay's murmur a dirge for what I'd nearly shattered. Sleep came fitful dreams tangled with wreckage. Splintered masts, Tyler's silhouette merging with Chris's, Wyatt's hand slipping from mine into abyss. Morning brought no truck in the drive, no basket of foraged goods. I wandered the shore, boots sinking in wet sand, sketching aimlessly, jagged lines that bled into waves, forms half-formed like my resolve. The lighthouse at Point Harrow loomed distant, its beam a fickle guide. By afternoon resolve hardened. I couldn't let doubt drown us. Driving to town, wipers slashing rain, I aimed for the anchor's end, hoping whiskey wisdom from locals might point the way. The pub hummed subdued, storm-keeping crowds thin. Finn, the barkeep with a sailor's squint, poured my pint without question. Harlan's a ghost today, docked at the far pier, tinkering with that old dory of his. His eyes narrowed, appraising. You too. Brewing something worth the weather. I nodded, throat tight, trying not to capsize it. Finn chuckled, sliding a bowl of nuts. Wyatt steady as they come, but that wreck left hooks. Chris Riley's one, shows up like bat tide dragging mud. He leaned in, voice low. Heard they were thick once post-storm. More than mates, some say. But Wyatt cut it clean. Man's got a code. The words landed like buoys, illuminating murky depths. Not betrayal but history, raw human. I thanked Finn, tossing coins, and headed to the harbor. Mist cloaking the docks like secrets. Wyatt's boat bobbed at the end. A weathered hull named Tether. Him bent over the rail, sanding wood with rhythmic strokes. Rain slicked his hair, shirt plastered, but he worked undeterred, shoulders taut. Wyatt. My voice carried soft over the lap of water. He straightened slow, wiping hands on jeans, expression guarded. Elias. Didn't expect company. I stepped aboard, deck rocking gentle, closing the gap. Needed to see you. Last night, I lashed out from fear, not truth. Tyler's ghost made me see shadows where there's light. Tears pricked, but I held his gaze. Tell me everything. No half-masts. He exhaled, leaning against the cabin, the dory's sway mirroring his turmoil. All right. The story unspooled. The storm 5 years prior, rogue wave capsizing the Tether's predecessor, pinning Wyatt and Chris amid debris. Hospital days blurred in painkillers, grief for lost mates forging a desperate bond. One night it crossed lines. Kisses in the dark, hands seeking solace. Woke ashamed, swore it buried. Chris spiraled after. I pulled away, focused on healing. Now he circles back, needy, twisting it into something more. His voice cracked on the admission, vulnerability stripping him bare. I hid it 'cause you're clean air, Elias. Didn't want my undertow pulling you under. I reached then, fingers lacing his, the calluses a map I'd memorized. Undertows pull stronger together. I'm not fragile. I'm yours if you'll have me. The kiss ignited slow, rain mingling on our lips, his arms enveloping as we sank to the deck, bodies aligning in urgent forgiveness. Clothes shed in pulls, skin chilled but warming under touch. His mouth trailing fire down my chest, hips grinding in rhythm with the boat's rock. We crested together, gasps echoing over water, sealing fractures with sweat-slicked promise. After, wrapped in a tarp against the drizzle, we talked till dusk. Plans whispered. Winter in the cabin, spring sails, a life woven from threads of us. You're my north, he murmured, head on my chest. But fate, capricious as coastal weather, had other designs. 2 days later, a knock shattered the idle sharp, official. Deputy Luke Carter on the porch, badge glinting, face grim. Mr. Harlan around? Need to question him on a theft report. Tools gone missing from the yard. Riley's name attached but fingers point here. Wyatt, emerging from the kitchen, paled. Chris? What the hell? Luke shifted, boots scuffing. He's holed up in Portland, singing to avoid assault charges. Says you supplied the truck, covered tracks. Old debts, Harlan. The air thickened, accusations chill rivaling winter's bite. Wyatt's jaw clenched, denial fierce. Bull. I've helped him, yeah, but theft? I'd never. Luke nodded, curt. handing papers. Just routine. Stay available. He left, truck fading, leaving us in stunned silence. Panic clawed, not doubt in Wyatt, but the world's cruelty dredging past to taint present. We'll fix this, I vowed, pulling him close. But as night fell, his restlessness grew, pacing like a caged tide. If it's him, dragging me down again. Pain laced the words, and in bed, our lovemaking turned frantic, bodies clashing in defiance of looming storm. Dawn brought Chris's call, Wyatt on speaker, my hand in his. You bastard, Chris slurred, voice venomous. Told your pretty artist yet? How you used me to forget her, your wife, then tossed me like chum. Laughter broken. Theft? Maybe. But you owe me, Wyatt. For the wreck. For that night you begged. Wyatt's face crumpled, hanging up. He's lying, twisting to hurt. But the seed replanted festered. I held him through tears, whispering anchors but fracture lines spidered. Trust, fragile as sea foam, threatened to dissolve. Winter clamped down on Haven Point like a vice, snow blanketing the peninsula and hush, muting the bay's roar to a muffled sigh. The theft accusation hung unresolved, Deputy Carter's investigation, a specter that chilled more than nor'easters. Wyatt retreated into work, endless repairs on rentals, hours lost to the harbormaster's ledgers, leaving me to the cabin's solitude, sketches turning somber, silhouettes adrift in ink-black seas, hands reaching but never clasping. Our nights clung desperate, bodies seeking what words faltered. He'd return dusted in frost, stripping layers by the fire, pulling me onto his lap with a hunger that bordered plea. Need you, he'd growl, mouth claiming mine. Hands mapping familiar paths, thumbs circling nipples to peaks, fingers delving deep as I arched, gasps mingling with the hearth's crackle. We'd chase oblivion in rhythms fierce and forgiving, his thrusts a counterpoint to doubt's drum, release shuddering through us like seismic aftershocks. Afterward, tangled in quilts, he'd trace my spine, murmuring, "This is real. Don't let his poison win." But poison seeped, insidious. Chris's call echoed in silences, breeding questions. What else buried? I buried my own Tyler's sporadic texts, apologies laced with "miss you," that I deleted unread, loyalty a shield against hypocrisy. Haven Point's gossip mill ground slow but relentless. At the store, eyes followed, whispers of Harlan's trouble trailing like smoke. Crisis crested mid-December. A gale-force blizzard stranding us for days. Power flickered, then died, echoing that first storm. But this time isolation amplified fractures. Cabin-bound, we baked bread from pantry scraps. Laughter forced over rising dough. Yet tension simmered. One evening as snow howled, Wyatt's phone lit. Unknown number. He silenced it, but not before I glimpsed the text. Tell him or I will. The whole wreck truth. See. Wyatt. My voice trembled, though forgotten. No more walls. What truth? He deflated, sinking to the table, head in hands. The night before the wreck. Chris and I fought. Bad. He was drunk, jealous of my marriage, the life I had. Pushed me, words turned fists. I decked him, left him on the dock. Next dawn we sailed anyway, tension thick as fog. When the wave hit, part of me wondered if karma called collect. Tears tracked his cheeks, raw confession. Guilt's why I prop him. Atonement for that shove, for surviving when he broke. Empathy warred with revulsion, not at him but the web of pain binding them. You carried that alone? God, Wyatt. I knelt, arms encircling, his sobs shaking us both. It's not poison, it's human. Messy but yours. Ours. The storm peaked that night, wind screaming as we made love by candlelight. Slow, reverent, his body yielding under mine, lips whispering forgiveness against collarbones, hips rolling in waves of reconnection. Dawn broke clear, snow-glazed world reborn, and with it resolve. We'd face Chris together. Portland loomed 2 days later, a gray sprawl against white fields, the drive tense with unspoken vows. Chris holed in a dive motel off Congress Street, room reeking of stale smoke and regret. Him gaunt, leg braced, eyes red-rimmed. Come to gloat, he sneered as we entered, bottle dangling. Wyatt's stance firmed, my hand in his anchor. To end it. No more wires, no covers. Get clean, Chris, for you, not me. Laughter barked, bitter. Easy for the survivor to preach. Gaze flicked to me venomous. He tell you how he begged that night in rehab. Don't leave, brother, need you? Lies twisted, but Wyatt countered steady. One mistake buried. You're drowning in it. Let go. Confrontation fractured then. Chris lunging, bottle shattering, Deputy Carter bursting in on a tip, cuffs clicking. Assault on record, Riley. Harlan's cleared. Tools recovered from your trunk. Chaos swirled, but Wyatt held fast, shielding me as Chris spat curses hauled away. Outside, snow falling soft, Wyatt sagged against the truck. Over. The word exhaled like breath long held. Not over, I said, kissing salt from his lips. Just the storm part. Back in Haven Point, healing unfurled tentative. Therapy sessions in Ellsworth for Wyatt. My sketches lightning to sunlit harbors. Christmas Eve we strung lights on the cabin's pine. His gift a locket with a tiny anchor. My tether. Mine. A portrait of us on the dory, eyes locked in eternal sail. But by Kitch's shadow lingered Tyler's call on New Year's, voice slurred from a party. Elias? Saw your Insta, that guy? He's rebound. Come back, we can fix us. Heart twisted, but I hung up, blocking the number. Betrayal's echo, but no longer mine to carry. Spring hinted early, crocuses piercing snow mirroring our thaw. Yet one final gale brewed. A letter from Chris, postmarked County Jail. Forgive the venom, brother. Wreck took more than limbs, took trust. Tell your Elias he's lucky. Hold fast. Enclosed. A photo from rehab days, Wyatt and Chris arm in arm, grins tentative. Proof of bonds broken, not defining. Wyatt read it by the fire, tears glistening. He's healing. Me too. His embrace enveloped, leading to the loft where we celebrated survival. Bodies entwined slow, touches worshipful, climaxes soft as dawn, affirming life's messy grace. Summer arrived in Haven Point like a long-awaited lover, sun gilding the bay in molten hues, wild roses tumbling over stone walls in riotous bloom. The cabin transformed under our hands, fresh paint on the porch, window boxes spilling geraniums, a hammock strung between maples where we'd sway with iced tea. Wyatt's head in my lap as I read aloud from dog-eared Kerouac, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my thigh. The theft shadow lifted with charges dropped, Chris entering rehab upstate, letters arriving sporadic but sober. First steps the hardest. Thanks for the shove, brother. Wyatt bloomed in tandem, limp fading with physical therapy, laughter freer at the anchor's end, where locals toasted Harlan's horizon with sly winks. Our love deepened roots. Dawn sails on the tether, his body bronzed and bare against mine on the foredeck, salt-kissed skin sliding in lazy thrusts as gulls cried overhead. Release cresting with the horizon. Evenings we'd cook feasts, lobster boils under stars, his mouth on mine tasting of butter and wine, hands exploring with the familiarity of old maps, yet thrill of discovery. Yet growth unearthed buried veins. Tyler's ghost resurfaced in spring's thaw. A package forwarded from Seattle. Our shared vinyl collection, note clipped. Couldn't keep these. They remind me of what I lost. Forgive. Rage simmered, then softened to pity. I donated half, kept the rest as talismans of survival. Wyatt held me through the purge, whispering, "You're not lost, you're found." The true Chow Treo brewed in July's swelter. A heat wave miring the coast in haze. Wyatt proposed a weekend escape to the outer islands. Uninhabited rocks where seals hauled out and lighthouses stood sentinel. We packed the skiff light. Cooler of sandwiches, sketchpad, a bottle of bourbon for toasts. The crossing thrilled, waves playful. His hand steady on the tiller as spray misted our grins. Nights on the bluff were idols. Tarp tent under Milky Way. Bodies slick with sweat and sea. His weight pinning me to earth as hips ground deep. Moans harmonizing with surf. One dawn sketching him asleep, vulnerability etched in relaxed lines. Love swelled overwhelming. This man scarred and steadfast who'd braved my tempests. Return brought the gale, literal and figurative. A nor'easter barreled unannounced, winds clocking 60, forcing Wyatt to the harbor for emergency moorings. Stay put, he urged, kissing me fierce at the dock. I'll be back by dark. Dusk bled tonight without him. Radio crackling, evacuation warnings, power cutting sharp. Panic clawed. Echoes of the first storm but laced with prescience. I paced the cabin, lantern flickering, phone dead. Hours stretched. Midnight tolled with a knock, not Wyatt but Luke Carter, face ashen. Elias. Boat's in. But Harlan, he took a rogue on the jetty. Slipped, hit his head. Medevac to Portland General. The world tilted, storms howl drowning my cry. Drive to the hospital blurred. Snowless roads slick with rain, wipers futile against tears. Yar waited, sterile, fluorescent bite. Wyatt bandaged, concussion confirmed but stable. Lucky, doc said. Tide pulled him under. Crew fished him out. In the room, monitors beeping soft, he stirred as I clasped his hand. Elias. Sorry. Couldn't leave the lines untied. Idiot, I choked, kissing knuckles. Tethers hold both ways. Recovery wove slow. Weeks in Haven Point's clinic, me shuttling meals and stories, our bond forged fiercer in waiting rooms. Chris visited once, crutch-bound but clear-eyed. Payback's hell, he joked, clasping Wyatt's shoulder. But family's family, messy or not. Discharge brought us home, cabin aglow with lanterns, neighbors' pies on the sill. That night, healed but humbled, we made love gentle. His body tentative under mine, touches reverent, climax a quiet wave affirming resilience. Autumn circled back, leaves turning gold as our first storm's anniversary. On the porch, wrapped in the blanket from that blackout night, Wyatt pulled a ring from his pocket, simple silver, etched with an anchor. Marry me? Not for forever, Smith, but this us storms and all. Tears blurred my yes, kiss sealing vows unspoken. Haven Point witnessed our quiet union at the lighthouse, Finn officiating, locals toasting with chowder and cheers. No grand gestures, just truth. Love as compass, navigating wreckage to wonder. Years later, with a son adopted from Portland's foster shadows, dark-haired like his dad, eyes blue as mine, we'd recount the storm that started it. Power cut, alone, then held close. The message lingered, human and humane. In betrayal's wake, compassion charts the freest course, identity reclaimed not in isolation, but embrace, self, other, the wild, beautiful mess of being.